you recently co-authored an article for The Atlantic called "The Myth of Majority-Minority America." What do you mean by that?
You know, I just got a tweet about that just before I came on your show. Somebody was complimenting me on that. That was a white guy who was complimenting me. Well, a lot of people have been scared about race. They think that one race is taking over and one race is losing. And whites are used to being on top and they don't want to ever be a minority.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to define actually what white is. There's not really a sharp line around it. And the only way you can get a minority is if you draw a line really tight. And then basically, like Jeb Bush, you know, my favorite example, you know, he's a white man,
right.
Bush family.
Right.
He married a Mexican woman from Mexico. They had kids. Are the kids white?
When I look at them, I see Mexican.
Well, one of them is darker than the others.
The boy, the oldest son, I guess.
Yeah, he's a little darker, but he's also good. He's a real bushy. He's running for political office in Texas right now.
Right.
So he's a bushy. I mean, and it doesn't. You know, he actually, I don't know. He's both. Literally, he speaks Spanish, and he has the family's culture too.
Yeah.
He's both. So the thing is, but all of Jeb Bush's kids then would be lost to the white race. That, like, they have no white connections. Well, what do you mean they have no white connections? Or you have Meghan Markle, another favorite example. And she married into the royal family.
Oh, yeah.
They had a kid, and they were all worried, well, maybe it's not, they weren't all worried. One person was worried that maybe the kid might be too dark or something. The kid, the queen was perfectly happy with this young lady. And, you know, but she's going to turn the royal family black or something? Is it one drop rule, the old-fashioned rule? That's ridiculous. So basically, Markle's kids are going to be white, and they're also going to be black by heritage. She's going to teach them that.
The last time I saw an image of the baby, he looked white.
Well, yeah, he looked.
He didn't see, unless he get older, he may turn a little darker.
It doesn't matter. I mean, he's going to be. He's his son's child, so he'll always be white.
Yeah.
And he's his mother's child, and so he'll be white and black.
I noticed though that in most mixed race marriages and couples and things like that, the children tend to identify with the darker person rather than the white person. Have you noticed that? Like with blacks married to whites, they tend to identify more with the black people than they do the white side of the family. Well, Obama did the same thing.
Who did?
Obama.
Yeah, well, because of his wife. If he had married a white woman, he would have said he was white and black.
Oh, okay.
But he married a black woman, married into a black family, married into Chicago, and became, he said, I watched that very closely, how he chose his races, and he only chose one, black alone, because he said, that's how people treat me. That's how they look at me, that's how they treat me. But I look at him, I see more of a white guy.
Yeah, he looked somewhat like a black guy, but he sound white.
Well, but he's a great person. I mean, what he did in Charleston, wow, you know. That was a black man speaking there.
Oh, yeah, he married a real black person.
Yeah.
He went like all the way black.
Well, he married her mother too, Mrs. Jones. Is that her name? What's her name?
Michelle's mother.
Yeah.
Obama married her mother.
Yeah, what's her name?
He can't get rid of her, huh?
Well, she lived with him in the White House.
She what?
I
know. What a horrible thing.
Well, it was a great.
I bet that was a nightmare.
No, but they were in a bubble. It was a great solution to lots of things.
Would you want your mother-in-law living with you? Be honest.
Well, she had to be a pretty nice woman. Think about it. She must be. I mean, he couldn't. Yeah, he wouldn't have been able to take it.
I know. What a mess.
There are really good mother-in-laws out there.
Where are they?
I've had one.
You did?
Yeah.
You just said that'd be nice.
Well, no, it was never that feeling with me.
Oh, it was?
Of course, she didn't live with me either.
Oh.
Anybody lives with you would get on your nerves after a while.
Is it a myth that whites are going to become the minority in America?
Well, the thing is, it's just because if you draw that line and you take away all the kids of whites and say they're not white, then the white population doesn't grow.
Yeah.
There's a lot of intermarriage. They're intermarried with Mexicans and other Latinos. They're intermarried with Asians.
Yeah.
Intermarried with blacks. I mean, it's extraordinary. And 85% of these children of non-white marriages, have white parents, because the whites are so many people. There's so many whites,
Right.
and so they account for a lot of that. It's just it's an artifact of how you draw the lines, and we're arguing you shouldn't draw a line. It's not a division. It's not plus and minus. It's not, it's like overlapping.
Yeah.
And people have a right to dual identity. They don't have to choose. Meghan Markle's famous story is that when she was in 8th grade, she took some tests and she had to choose. Check one box. And she didn't ask the teacher, which one should I choose? And the teacher finally told her to choose white. Megan, just choose white. But she wasn't that happy. She went home to complain to her father, who was white.
Yeah.
And he told her, next time they make you do that, you draw your own box.
Oh, I see.
That's what he told her.
There is this idea that whites will be real soon, not far from a couple of years from now, it's being reported that whites will become the minority.
That's just according to that statistical. See, I'm a demographer. I know how they do the projections. And it's artificial how they do it. It's not really the reality. It's not asking people, who do you identify with?
Oh,
it's just a calculation based on some numbers and a lot of subtractions. They're subtracting people away from the whites. And we think if people choose 2 boxes, they should not be subtracted.
I'm glad to hear that, because I tremble at the idea that white people may become the minority and the colored people become the majority, because if they take over, it's over for America.
Well, I mean,
have you noticed that?
No, but I mean, the colored people. There's so many different kinds of people.
The black ones.
Oh, the black ones they're only
it's over, right?
They're only 15% of the total, right?
Yeah, thank God.
Something like that. Well, I mean, they're not growing very fast because they don't have that many kids that fast.
Because they're too busy fighting the white man.
I don't know. Well, no, I don't know.
Have you noticed that?
No, I don't see that right.
But have you noticed that black people don't build, they only destroy?
They only destroy?
Yeah.
When they get mad, they do. They destroy, yeah.
Yeah, even when they...
Listen, they got a lot of reasons to be mad.
Like what?
Like what?
Yeah.
Well, turn on the news, the next police officer does something. The greatest thing to help white people to understand the black life is that everybody has a cell phone in their pocket with a video camera. That's the best way to share the black experience.
But the people that they are showing that are being attacked, not attacked, but dealt with cops are thugs against black people who are running from the cops, who have criminal records, who have weapons.
They are oftentimes running.
They have weapons, and they're yelling and
you
cursing.
You are exaggerating. You're exaggerating.
How am I exaggerating? Name me one that was a decent person that was hurt by a cop.
The one that sticks in my mind the most is from 3 years ago. The guy in South Carolina, 50 years old, pulled over by a cop for some traffic infraction
the one that was running?
And he ran away. And he shot him in the back like a deer.
That's because he didn't want to go to jail. He was
running. But he didn't have any weapons. He wasn't threatening anybody. He just ran away.
But how do you know that as a cop, though?
He shot him like a deer.
He tried to take this taser away from the cops.
But no, that wasn't that guy.
You talk about this Scott guy, I think.
He wasn't wrestling with him. He just ran away.
If you notice the video, if I'm remembering the right person, just at the beginning of the video, you can see them tussling, and it's ending, and the black guy takes off, and that's when the cop shot him. And then later you find out the guy was running because he didn't want to go to jail, I believe, for child support or something like that.
It could be something like that.
But these are thuggish people that
that's not a thug. I mean, he could be, child support could be a problem of poverty. He doesn't have the money.
Or you just don't want to pay. I don't blame him for not wanting to pay, but I'm just saying.
The thing is, shoot him in the back like a deer. That is what gives rise to the idea of Black Lives Matter. I shouldn't be lecturing you about that, but that's what makes me understand what that is. You can't shoot him like a deer.
You believe that. But the thing about it, Doctor, is that the black people are supporting thugs and drug dealers and bad people. They're not even supporting, I can see it if these were decent black people and these things was happening to them. But you're not supposed to support bad black people. You're supposed to say, hey, children, this is not what you want to be. This is like George Floyd, right? An unemployed drug addict with a criminal record, and they made him into a hero. Does that make sense?
They made him into a martyr.
Right, does that make sense?
They should not have martyred him.
Right, he wasn't no hero. He was a drug addict. And he's dead because he resisted.
And by the way, he had a white wife or white girlfriend too, didn't he?
Yeah, he called her mama.
And she was a drug addict, and they were trying to get off it together. He got on it because, like a lot of white people do, he got on it because he was injured and had some opioids they were giving him for for recovery, and he got hooked. The opioid crisis is really it's really a white epidemic.
Yeah.
but it's just deadly. It's dastardly. We should not let people get hooked on stuff like that, because it's hard to get off it.
But if they dealt with the cause and effect of using drugs, you wouldn't see as many people on them, but they don't deal with the real deal. I want to ask you this. Nearly 3 in 10 Asians, and I didn't know this, 3 in 10 Asian, 1 in 4 Latino, and 1 in 5 Black newlyweds are married to a member of a different ethnic race group, right?
Right.
And more than 3/4 of these marriages are with a white spouse.
Exactly, yeah.
And so, what does that mean? What is the significance of that?
That's an amazing number, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah, it is. It's mind blowing.
I didn't fully realize it until just a couple years ago.
When did you get those numbers? Do you remember?
No, those are one of my partners pulled those numbers up.
Oh,
But
okay.
we've seen them a couple of times from birth records, and they put the race of the and marriage records.
Right.
They record the race of the both parties.
And so, what's the significance of that?
Well, it means that the barrier between white and black is being lowered.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, being lowered a lot.
And are the people aware of that? They don't seem to notice.
Well, I mean,
Because we see, when you say the barriers are being lowered, do you mean they're coming closer together?
yeah, they're coming closer together, and there's less of a barrier between them. There's less of a distance between them, and the fact that they start to overlap more, and the fact that there's that many. That's our national data. That's not for California. California's higher than that.
Wow.
But that's national data. It's pretty extraordinary. Is that people are more and more comfortable. Well, some people are very comfortable with people of different races,
Right.
and some people is that ratio is pretty high. It's pretty high. So which is good news. It's like a glass half empty, half full. I'll tell you, there's a bottom third here that's racist. And maybe it's a bottom tenth that's really, really racist. But there's a top half that's really pretty warm-hearted.
Why don't we hear about that and see that? We don't hear at all about it, nor do we see it reflected in the media or anything.
Yeah.
Because that might have a better impact on society
It would.
if that type of information was out there.
You know, you're right. The problem is that the news media likes to tell stories about train wrecks, about big accidents, about big threats, alarming things, get people's attention. If you had a story and said, guess what? And nothing happened, they wouldn't report it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when I was, I've been in LA for like 30 years or so, and I've been amazed at how little racial strife there actually is in LA. You just don't hear about big rumbles in the high schools the way I imagined it would be every day. It's not news. It does not happen. There's very little strife. Occasionally it flares up, but given all the diversity we have, how little friction there is, that's impressive. But it's not a news story.
The only time we will hear about it if a white person, a white student were to start it with a non-white student, you'll hear more about it. But because it's the blacks who are doing it to the whites or the Hispanic doing it to the whites, schools, the kids in school, you don't hear anything about it. Because the media and others can't use it to promote hatred between the races for their own personal gain.
Yeah, I think they're just trying to dramatize big flare-ups, big accidents, big train wrecks.
And why are they trying to do that, you think?
Just to sell papers. And they're desperate, you know. They're up against the wall. Their business is declining. The news media people are desperate to get attention. And then social media feeds that even more. They're desperate to get clicks. And so the things that get clicks the most are these kind of dramatic things with a few little puppy stories at the tail end of the news, you know, good news at the very end.
Well, I know you can't trust the news. So how can we get the real story out? Because if this is true, and I don't know if I doubt it or not, how can we get the real story out to sort of change the mind of the people?
Well, you have to show them something that's surprising or shocking, and you can tell them a good story as long as it's a surprise. You can't say, preacher makes good. That's not a surprise.
Right.
But if you have a gangster makes good, then they'd cover that. So, you know, they will cover surprising things that are good.
Amazing. And so, but we can't even trust the media anyway. So you know.
Well, they don't tell you lies,
Yeah.
but they're selective.
Yeah.
They're selective in what they.
So all these mixed races that these numbers we ran off, are these mixed race people identified as white?
They have self-identified that way.
And are they quiet about it, or do they let the world know I'm white?
Well, they've recorded it on paper. They don't walk around saying it, but probably they must feel they look white.
Right.
And they walk arm in arm with their bride or groom proudly of the different race. And that takes some doing to do that, just because you're sort of outside your social circle, your family circle. But my colleague, Richard Alba, who's got an excellent book, by the way, on this, called The Great Illusion. It just came out last year from Princeton University Press. Excellent book. He makes the point that when you have the interracial marriages, you're actually bonding social networks across the divide. Because then you have a family that has connections on both sides. And people learn about the experience on the other side. And so that's the elemental basis of social bonding. Now, you shouldn't have to be able to be forced to marry somebody in order to appreciate them.
Right.
But nonetheless, it does happen, and that it's a nucleus for little United Nations all across America. Every family's got this going on. And that's, I ran into it with somebody in Connecticut over the phone. She said, oh, yes. And she itemized what her son was with a Filipino, and and then she's got cousins who are intermarried with blacks. I said, wow, this is an Italian-American lady.
Do you believe mixed racing will unite the races rather than dividing them?
Oh, yeah.
You believe that?
Yeah.
What is it that divide the races?
It's opportunists who try to actually tell inflammatory stories. That's what it is. That's the factor that does it. And they tell stories that have certain common themes. One is that somebody's getting things they don't deserve, that you're being cheated. They're stealing what you got, and you have to fight them back. And it's us against them. They tell that kind of story. And then lots of people are primed to believe it.
What's wrong with the people that they fall for it?
They have a simplistic view of the universe. Like, for example, people who've got bad attitudes about immigrants, they ask surveys about that, and the ones that have the worst bad attitudes are from states where there are no immigrants. They think the immigrants come to America to be freeloaders, to live off welfare. They don't know immigrants are the hardest workers because they have no experience. So they believe the stories, the mythology, because they don't know better.
But it is unfair when you see the illegals just coming across the borders in droves, and when they get here, we have to take care of them. They take the jobs away from the citizens and things like that. So people would naturally be upset about that, right?
They could be, in some circumstances.
Yeah.
But right now, we depend a lot on our immigrant workers. That they're like really a big component of our healthcare workers, of our surgeons, and also of our just home healthcare aides. My mom was taken care of by an immigrant from Nicaragua, I think it was.
Plus they work for cheap labor, right?
Well, it was cheap, but also warm-hearted and a whole lot better than getting a robot, which is what they have in Japan. Japan doesn't allow any immigrants in.
Nice.
None, yeah. So their population is going down. They're going to go to zero. They're projecting now.
Oh yeah. Do they make a lot of babies?
No.
They don't?
Less and less.
Well, that's what's wrong. They need to make more babies. They should stop it. Don't let the illegals in, but make a lot of babies.
The thing is, they need all the women to be working because they don't have enough workers.
Right.
They don't want to have babies. They want to keep working. And so they're in a tailspin.
Yeah. I noticed that the population is going down in the white community, white on white, because they're not having a lot of babies either. They either have one or two, or they abort them. Is that a good idea? Should we be telling them to make more white babies? Don't we need more white babies?
We need more total babies.
Especially white ones, like white on white.
Well, I mean, you need more white babies. The birth rate for African Americans is as low as whites.
Oh, it is?
It's really low. It's like 1.8. You need 2.1 babies per woman to break even in the long run.
Right.
And I think it's 1.8, maybe 1.7. Asians is low too, and whites. And then Latinos, Latinas.
They having babies like nutty going north.
We used to count on them. You know what their birth rate is right now?
What?
In America, it's like 2.0. They're below break even also.
They're going down too?
Yeah. So the most interesting fact that I think in my book, Immigrants and Boomers, was a minor point, but I discovered it at the end, about what the birth rate is in Mexico. You know, Mexico. In 1970, the average Mexican family had 6 babies.
Wow.
And that's your stereotype of the big Mexican family. That was
Right.
1970.
I remember those days when they had a bunch of babies
Well, by 1990, it had dropped a lot.
in Mexico.
Yeah. And by today, it's down to like 2.1 in Mexico. So basically, when you had 6, there was surplus kids being born.
Amazing.
We were the overflow. They flooded into California.
Oh, when I was growing up, there was a lot of babies. I had 5 brothers. I have 2 left, but I had 5 brothers. I'm number 6, and 7 sisters in my family.
5 brothers plus 7 sisters?
Yes.
Oh, God. Wow.
You know what I mean? And I had an aunt who got married. She and her husband had something like 17 kids or something like that.
Yeah.
So they used to have a lot. My grandmother had a bunch of brothers and sisters. So they used to make babies.
Well, they used to need farm labor way back, and it was useful.
Yeah.
But I don't know where you put them in terms of housing. In the urban environment, our houses are too small. We can't. So the immigrants learn real fast the American way is to have fewer kids because you can't afford the housing.
Well, we definitely. I've been telling white people for a long time, y'all need to be making some white babies because I tremble to think that one day white people would not be ruling America. It's going to be over for America. We're going to have South Africa in America. You know what's happening over there, right? The blacks took over, and they ran this the white people off in the road somewhere, and they're taking the land without compensation, killing them, robbing, raping, and South Africa falling apart, just like Zimbabwe and other people. Do you tremble with me that if white people don't run this country, it's over?
No.
You should be. How old are you?
I'm over 60.
Well, you need to be trembling because you're going to be a wild hog. You're going to be around.
Well, it's just there aren't that many African Americans to get that big a number. In South Africa, they were the majority, like 60%, 70% of the people. But you're only 15%, so what's the big threat?
So they're not going to, they won't take over?
They can't take over. And as you know, in LA
I hope
already,
not.
if you're going to win any elections, you need a multi-ethnic coalition. You can't win it with one race alone. You can't win it with whites alone. You can't win it with Latinos alone. You got, and that's how it should be. It should be a coalition
But
across.
most white people have left Los Angeles because they are so under attack.
Well, they left a lot because they made a lot of money in selling their houses too.
Thank God, huh?
Yeah.